What's up, Tommy Jaggi of Fansided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher on the Stacking the Box podcast at our new time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Marcus, we're going to talk about the Micah Parsons trade fallout today. We're also going to give our top 10 power rankings. We're going to go back and forth, and we're going to draft the teams that we believe prior to the start of the season should be in the top 10 power rankings. And we're going to give our predictions for some highly anticipated primetime games coming up here in week one. Marcus, I want to start with the Micah Parsons news. I know for some people it's old news at this point, but you are an expert on everything Dallas Cowboys, and I want to get your thoughts. What do you make of the trade fallout here?
It sucks. I mean, as a Cowboy fan, it's not fun to trade your best player. There's very few NFL franchises that have actually traded their best players in their prime. But I want to start with the Packers because I think the Packers are actually the more interesting team here. It was clear that this is a very good Packers team that, they won double-digit games last year. They've made the playoffs, but they needed something to get them over the hump. They made it to round 2 of the playoffs in 2023, 2024. They couldn't get past the wild card round. And this is a team that's in a championship window with a very expensive roster, and they were starting to fall behind in the NFC North. They were the third place team in that division. It felt like they needed to make a move, a big move, and kind of continuing with doing this drafting and developing and building around Jordan Love, but not really having enough superstars to really go toe to toe with like the Eagles and the Rams and the Lions. They needed a move like this. Did they give up too much to get him? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think 2 first-round picks in Kenny Clark is too much. Now, the fact that they're paying him $47 million a year with almost all of it guaranteed, that's going to have some big effects down the road. But what do you care? You're the Green Bay Packers. You need to try to win right now. So, Tommy, I totally understand it from the Packers side. I don't know how much this changes the balance of power in the NFC or in the NFC North, but it was a move that Green Bay had to do in order to stay with those top teams in the conference.
Yeah, and I mean, you called it. It was expensive. It kind of mimicked the Khalil Mack trade that we saw years ago, in a sense. And I think that, I mean, the compensation somehow wasn't even where it needed to be for Dallas. But what can you expect to get for a single non-quarterback? I think that we just saw that this is the top end. Like whether it's Jamar Chase or whoever, and Micah's got as much value as any non-quarterback in the league. 2 first-round picks and a solid player is about what you're going to get. Marcus, is there any chance that this could end up being maybe a bad trade for both parties here?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's easy to see how it could be bad for Dallas, right? They're just unable to replace Micah Parsons. The Packers picks end up being in the 20s or even 30s, and you're just getting average players instead of game-changing players. And it's really hard to get those type of guys like Micah Parsons, obviously. So it's easy to see how it could go wrong for Dallas. But for Green Bay, I mean, outside of like Micah getting hurt or the Packers just really, really being bad, no, because again, you're talking about picks that are going to be later part of the first round. Instead of maybe being able to sign someone like Jaden Reed, as a free agent, you let him go, you let Christian Watson go, and that's how you make up the money to sign Micah Parsons. But no, outside of anything major like that, I think this is going to be a good move for Green Bay.
Yeah, you talk about a win now move. That's exactly what it is. No surprise they pushed money back considering their financial state. And you look, I mean, Mike is going to have some substantial salary cap numbers in 2028. Goes up to 64.2 million, and then in 2029, over 68 million is the cap number that he's going to charge against Green Bay's salary cap. Now, obviously, there are things you can do with the contract at that point. You can continue to push it back. You can rework the deal. And this also includes 2 void years with the deal as well. Do you think that the window after this trade is like 2-3 years for Green Bay?
It's really 3 years, right? Because they push so much money into the future where I think there's like back-to-back years of $68 million cap hits. Like, it's pretty clear they're lining up for a 3-year window. And that lines up with a lot of the other moves they've made, whether it's signing Josh Jacobs, signing Xavier McKinney. Like, they've actually done a lot to bring in some outside talent. And yeah, this is about trying to maximize Jordan Love's prime, Micah Parsons' prime. He's 26. You want to probably try to get the best possible team around him over the next 3 years. And then we'll see. Like, there's going to be some weird things at the end of this contract. I think there's maybe some concerns about how Micah Parsons might age in the NFL. But for the next 3 years, I think Green Bay is absolutely in contention in the NFC.
Yeah, Marcus, I'm going to segment this right into our next topic, which is we are going to do our top 10 power rankings. And now I'm interested to see where Green Bay falls in here. And I want to do this in a way where we go back and forth. And we'll start with you with the first overall pick. We're going to go through 10. Yeah.
Real quick, can we? I just want to talk about the compensation for Micah Parsons because I am in agreement from the Cowboys side that they didn't get enough. Like 2 first-round picks in Kenny Clark isn't enough for a 26-year-old pass rusher. But I will say we really haven't ever seen a non-quarterback get traded for more. Even the Khalil Mack trade. Like, I think a lot of people are forgetting. Yes, the Bears traded 2 first-round picks to get Khalil Mack, but they had to give up a second-round pick in that trade as well. So it really wasn't like 2 first-round picks for Khalil Mack. Even in the Jamal Adams trade, the Jets had to send a third-round pick back. This is the most we've ever seen for a non-quarterback. And also, if you go back to the Khalil Mack trade, Khalil Mack was going into year 4 when he got traded, whereas Micah Parsons going into year 5. Teams generally don't like to trade for players where they get absolutely no value on the rookie contract. Micah Parsons was set to be due $24 million this year. I think it's going to be a long time before we ever see another defensive player traded for anything close to this.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it's uncharted territory. We'll see how it works out for both parties here. Man, we could talk all day long about Jerry Jones and just everything that went down, but I know that you've probably already looked into this at this point. We're going to move on and talk about our top 10 power rankings, Marcus, and maybe see if Green Bay falls in here, where they fall. We're going to go back and forth picking teams that we believe are the top 10 teams in the NFL this season. Marcus, I'm going to give you the first pick. Let me know which team you have at the very top of the list, and then we'll kind of go from there.
I mean, I think it's easy every year just to pick the previous Super Bowl champion and say that they're the best team in the league. But in the case of Philadelphia, like, I truly believe it. I thought Philadelphia was the best team all last year. 2 years ago, they were in the Super Bowl, and in 2023, they were 10-1 to start the season, 11-1. When you look at this Eagles roster, show me where the holes are at. Like, their offense is phenomenal. They've got all pros all over the place. On defense, they've got one of the best defensive coordinators in Vic Fangio. They're loaded up front. They've got a bunch of young players in their secondary. They've an all-pro linebacker in Zach Bond, and now they've added a first-round pick in Giad Campbell. I mean, I'm not predicting them to win the Super Bowl this year because injuries always happen, and it's hard to win back-to-back Super Bowls. But as we go into week 1, I don't see a better team in the league than Philadelphia.
That's the right choice. I think that would have been my top choice. And so for number 2 in our power rankings, I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens as the second best team here. The Ravens were so good last year. Lamar Jackson very well could have and probably should have won his second straight MVP. He had a top 5 season statistically we've ever seen from the quarterback position, especially if you factor in what he was able to do as a rusher. They were a 12-win team in a crowded AFC North last year. I still think that division is tough, at least those top 3 teams. They've got the 9th hardest schedule in the league this year, and so that might make it difficult to get back on top in terms of having 12-plus wins again this season, but I still think that they're right there. Lamar is one of the top players in the game. I think they've got a well-rounded roster, not as talented as the Eagles, but it's really shaping up here well. Their secondary is coming together with everything that they've done in that department, and so I would pick the Ravens as the number 2 team. What say you?
Yeah, I think Baltimore probably does have the second best roster in the league. And, you look at their secondary, right? Having Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks, maybe the best safety duo in the league. They've added a bunch of guys in their cornerback room, and they've got Marlon Humphrey and Nate Wiggins, who I think is a star. They signed Jair Alexander to be the third corner. They also have Chidobe Awuzie. Like, they're just loaded everywhere. I think the only thing that you worry about a little bit is the pass rushers. Can Kyle Van Noy and Adafi Owe bring enough juice on the edge? But when you're talking about like champagne problems here, this is a very, very good roster.
Yeah, the holes that they have aren't glaring, I would say, and they were certainly able to mask them. They've got the coach, they got the quarterback. Marcus, who do you have as the third best team? If we're saying Eagles and Ravens number 1 and 2, who's number 3?
So this is really tricky because you have the Chiefs who have made the Super Bowl in each of the last 3 years. But that division is so difficult, and that's their schedule is absolutely brutal. They travel more miles this year than the Ravens and the Bills combined. So, like, this is, I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs are like an 11-6 team, whereas I think the Bills have a realistic chance to go 13-4, 14-3. I don't love the roster, but I love Josh Allen. I think Sean McDermott is a really good regular season coach. That defense always plays well against the division. And it's just hard at this point. Like Josh Allen has shown us, like if he stays healthy, he's winning 11 plus games every single year. I'm taking the Bills here at number 3.
Yeah, the Bills would have been my pick for this spot as well. I think that they are on the cusp of getting there. Haven't quite been able to get over the hump. Is the defense can help them out a little bit more in the postseason. Josh Allen is certainly the game changer that can get him there. Marcus, you took the Bills, and so I'm taking the Chiefs number 4. I would have contemplated for them for that spot anyway. I don't know how we can overlook this team. They were 15-2 last year. Did they crumble in the Super Bowl? Beyond anything that I've ever seen before. It was terrible, but I think that they can bounce back this year, even with the Rashee Rice suspension. You still have the core that can get you there. And to add a little bit of context to those travel miles, they do play in Sao Paulo, Brazil, week 1. So, and I mean, they're already prepping for that. So I think that that takes away from it a little bit. ESPN has them projected at 10.3 wins. They only have the 11th hardest schedule, even though they're, I mean, admittedly in a crowded AFC West, and there are a couple teams that can come out on top there. I think that they have been here so many times that's really harder to put them any lower than number 4 on this list.
Yeah, it is. And I would keep them at 4. They do have some concerning spots. Like they're going to be starting a rookie left tackle in Josh Simmons. Now, he's been awesome in the preseason. We'll see what it looks like in the regular season. Rashee Rice, their number 1 receiver, going to miss the first 6 weeks of the year. And they've got a brutal schedule out of the gate. He's going to miss games like against the Eagles, obviously against the Chargers. I won't be surprised if the Chiefs start out the year a little bit slow. Their schedule does lighten up a little bit more at the end of the year, but I would be surprised, Tommy, if this is the number 1 seed in the AFC this year. I just think that schedule is too tough, and they've lost too much talent over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Marcus, we've got Eagles, Ravens, Bills, Chiefs. Who do you have as the 5th best team going into the 2025 season?
Yeah, I'm taking the Packers. That NFC North is so close, and you could convince me that it should be the Lions here, but I do think the addition of Micah Parsons could swing that division enough that where Green Bay is now winning it. I think they've got one of the best offensive lines in the league. They can really run the ball. Now they get one of the best pass rushers in the league. You pair him with Rashawn Gary. Lucas Van Ness has been great during the preseason. They have all the ingredients to be a team that's very, very good this year. I think the only question mark is just how good is Jordan Love? We've seen Jordan Love look really good in flashes. He's also struggled in some games, and he's been a little bit too turnover prone. I think Jordan Love is going to be fine. I'm curious to see what the wide receiver core looks like with Jaden Reed, who is dealing with a Jones fracture. You've got Matthew Golden, who is a rookie. Obviously, no Christian Watson. A lot of moving pieces on offense, but this is an incredibly deep and talented roster.
Yeah, I'm a believer in the Packers as well. And I'm curious, Marcus, had the Packers not made the trade for Micah, would you have still selected them as the 6th best team?
No, because I think the Lions and the Vikings are so close in talent, but adding a blue chip player like Micah can be all the difference, because when you get into these shootout games, it's really nice to have that guy on the edge that can create a pressure whenever he wants.
I agree. Young roster loaded with talent. Defense was already pretty strong. You've got young skill players. I like where you selected that. And once again, this was the team that I would have picked with the 6th spot as well. I'm going to go to my selection, number 7, and I'm going to pick the LA Chargers. And I'm also a firm believer in this team. If you watched our last week's show, I spoke highly of the Chargers. I love what they've got going on. Jim Harbaugh has an incredible win percentage as an NFL head coach, albeit with a decade gap in between as he was a college coach. I believe in Justin Herbert, that he is still the guy there. Lad McConkey showed that I think that he could be a wide receiver 1. Their roster is taking form. Their defense played tougher than the talent on it would indicate, even though they also have the 11th hardest schedule. They're in a really daunting division, which it's going to be hard to get 2-3 playoff teams out of the AFC West. I believe they will be one of them, and they are my 7th best team.
I struggle with the Chargers because I do want to just blindly trust Jim Harbaugh. But I do think the injury to Rashawn Slater is a massive one. You go from having one of the league's best tackle pairings to now Trey Pipkins is going to be starting at right tackle and Joe Alt's moving to left tackle. I know Brandon Thorne, who does a great job of ranking offensive linemen and studying these guys. He had him as a top 10 unit with Rashawn Slater. After the Slater injury, they're all the way down to like 26 because Pipkins is a below average starter. They've got issues at left guard and center. And the other issue for me, Tommy, is the secondary. I don't think a cornerback duo of Dante Jackson and Cam Hart is going to be good enough in the AFC West. And we've got our old friend Bud Dupree as one of the starting edge rushers for the Chargers. Like there's a lot of talent here. I love the coaching staff, but I just, when you compare it to some of these other teams, I don't know if they have the overall roster to compete with the top end teams in the AFC.
The talent is not all the way there yet. And I think that is clear on paper, but for whatever reason, you get that 15% boost with Harbaugh. It's kind of like the Mike Tomlin factor. And so I think that they will be a good team. I still would have them that high. I mean, there's other teams obviously in that cluster, Marcus, but you don't like the Chargers there. Who would you pick in the next spot, number 8 spot?
I love the Rams this year. I think the Rams are just a better version of the Chargers, where the offensive line significantly better. The play caller and Sean McVay, I like it a lot more than Greg Roman. I love the addition of Devontae Adams. I still think he can play at a really high level, and now he's your wide receiver too. Like he's just going to absolutely cook number 2 cornerbacks, and they've even improved like the depth of their skill positions. They re-signed Tutu Atwell. They drafted Terrence Ferguson in round 2. Kyron Williams, one of the more underappreciated runners. And I think as good as the offense is, I actually think the defense is better. Like we saw this defense absolutely ball out in the second half of the year. And honestly, they probably did the best job against the Eagles of any team that we saw in the playoffs. And they are incredibly young. I mean, this is one of the youngest defenses in the league. I think there are some questions about the cornerback spots, just like the Chargers. But I just trust Sean McVay and I trust this defensive coaching staff to figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons you just outlined, I 100% am okay with having the Rams right there as well. I think they should be one of the best teams in the NFC. And I'll tell you another team not to sleep on, and that's my next team at number 8. I guess we were at number 7 before. This is number 8. I've got the San Francisco 49ers coming off that down year. It was ugly at times. They were riddled with injuries. Their roster isn't as young as it once was, but I still believe that they could see a bounce back season this year. I think that they are going to have 10 plus wins. They are in the same division with the Rams. And so only one of those teams is going to come out on top there. But I still think we look back a few years, 2-3 years ago, the 49ers had one of the most talented rosters we've seen. There's been turnover since then, but not enough to believe that they can't return to form. I think that they are a team that is one of the top in the NFC this year.
I'm with you. They have a very funny roster in the sense that, honestly, it reminds me a lot of the Cowboys, where it's just so top heavy with talent. And like once you get to players 11 through 20, like you're really having to grind your teeth about who these guys are. But like this is an old team. Like Trent Williams is in his upper 30s. George Kittle is in his 30s. Christian McCaffrey is like an old 28, 29 years old. But I like the coaching staff. I love the addition of Robert Saleh coming back to coach the defense. And you mentioned it, like the schedule is so soft this year that they might not even be a great team and they still get to like 11 or 12 wins. And I've had a really hard time all offseason picking who I think is going to win the NFC West. I think it's going to be one of these two teams, but I have got no problem slotting them here.
Yeah, and according to ESPN, the easiest schedule in the NFL this year, projected 9.8 wins. I think that they get to that 10-win mark at least. Marcus, who do you have as the number 9 best team going into the 2025 season?
I understand all the concerns about the Lions this year, right? You lose Ben Johnson, you lose Aaron Glenn. Those are two massive losses. There's no doubt. But this was a really good team last year. This was the number 1 team in the NFC. And that was with a bunch of injuries on defense. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson basically missed the entire season. They had at one point 10 defensive linemen on the injured reserve list. I don't think they are going to be as good as they were last year, but I still expect this offense to be unbelievable. I think Jamison Williams in year 3 is really year 4. I think he's really going to help make this offense more dynamic. The offensive line is not as good as it was a year ago, but you still have the best tackle duo in the league with Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. I think they're going to be okay on that side of the ball. And if Aiden Hutchinson can get back to the level that we saw him play at last year or anything close to that, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the number 1 or number 2 seed again. This is just a very, very good roster with a lot of elite players. And I actually think last year's injuries might help their depth this year. They've got a lot of guys that are backups now that played a lot of games last year. Don't be surprised if the Lions are 12, 13 wins again this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels criminal to have them any lower than this based on what they did last season. But at the same time, Marcus, and I am a believer in the talent too, but you just lost both coordinators to head coaching jobs. I don't recall the last time this has happened and how well it's gone, but Ben Johnson, I'm a firm believer in him. Aaron Glenn, at least as a defensive play caller. I just don't know what this team is going to look like without 2 of their 3 leaders, essentially. I mean, Dan Campbell's still there. He's maybe the best delegator in all of football, but can you stomach the blow of losing both of your coordinators who have been excellent over the last few years?
I don't know. And honestly, that's probably the only reason that we're ranking
That's
them.
why he's at 9. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's, if they lost, let's say they lost Ben Johnson and not Aaron Glenn, we're probably ranking them inside the top 4. Honestly, there's just a lot of unknown here. But again, I love the talent. Like having a safety duo, and I know that's not the most important position, but having the safety duo of Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch can just stabilize things on the back end. And like I love the pick of Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Like that gives them a real guy in the middle that can help stop the run. Again, they might not be a top 4, top 5 team this year, but I have no doubt that the Lions are going to be absolutely in the playoffs and being a contending team in 2025.
The talent is there, getting Aiden Hutchinson back off of that leg injury, and he looked awesome before that last season. Marcus, I went back and forth for the 10th and final spot on the power rankings heading into the 2025 season, and I settled with the Denver Broncos. And again, 3 teams from the AFC West there, maybe not all 3 to make the playoffs, but Broncos are good. I mean, this defense was awesome last year. They were one of the top teams in the NFL in DVOA last season. They have the defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain too. I think that Bo Nix had a phenomenal rookie season, should only continue to improve. Maybe doesn't have the same statistical output he did. Sean Payton is proving that he is that Hall of Fame level coach. Like, what are they missing here to keep them from being a top 10 team?
Nothing. Like I think this is, to me, the only 2 teams I was considering at this spot would have been like the Broncos and the Vikings, because you know how much I respect the Vikings coaching staff. I think the talent's really good, but this was, one of the best defenses in the league this year. They drafted Jahdae Barron, and they went out and they got more talent. They got Hufanga to be one of their strong safeties. They signed Drake Greenlaw. They re-up Zach Allen. Like this is going to be an absolutely stellar defense. And then you've got Sean Payton on the other side calling plays. So it won't shock me at all, Tommy, if the Broncos win the AFC West. I'm not predicting that, but I won't be surprised if that's the case, because this team is really good. They've got a strong offensive line, which matters. I think the only question mark is, do they have enough like firepower on offense? Are there enough dynamic playmakers to win them some games? We'll see. But this is one of the more well-balanced teams in the entire NFL.
Yeah, and I don't want to even say slept on because I think a lot of people are seeing this coming already. But I just think there's so much room there to get even better. You've got a young quarterback entering his second season. The secondary should be awesome. Defense should be awesome. Sean Payton is doing his thing. So that means that my Steelers and your Cowboys did not make the mark, unsurprisingly.
No.
But Marcus, let's shift gears here, and I want to talk about predictions for primetime games this week. We've got some awesome games on the slate. I hope they live up to the hype because a couple of these should be really good. But I'll start with one that the line isn't particularly close in right now, and that is your Cowboys going to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles in Thursday Night Football. This is a different game, obviously. If Micah Parsons is there and if he's not dealing with a back injury, we can see this swing either way. We still could. This is week one. Fluky things happen. But the Cowboys are 8.5-point underdogs. The Eagles are reigning Super Bowl champions. We know how talented this team is. Who are you taking in this game?
We see upsets happen all the time in week one. That is true. There's just a very narrow path to victory for Dallas because they have to be really good on offense and get an early lead and force Philadelphia to pass the ball. But Philadelphia's defense is really, really strong. They can create pressure with their front four. I think they're going to get an early lead and then just lean on the run. And then we'll see some play action shots down the field. I don't think the Cowboys are going to do a good job of getting pressure with their front four against this awesome Philadelphia offensive line. This very much feels like a game where Philadelphia is in control throughout. Maybe it's not a blowout by the scoreboard, but the final outcome is never really in doubt. I think the Eagles are going to win and cover this one pretty easily. This is just a very favorable matchup for Philadelphia early in the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys surprise some people with their offense. They got the addition of George Pickens. I think that they're going to win some shootout games this year. I think they're going to have to. But at the same time, the Eagles' rushing attack is just going to be too much to overcome, I think. Addition of Kenny Clark and all, they're going to be able to toy with Dallas a little bit here. I agree with you. I've got the Eagles winning this game, but I do have Dallas covering the spread. I think that they'll do enough to keep it within a touchdown. Marcus, let's go to the following game. We've got Friday Night Football this week. That is the Chiefs-Chargers game in Brazil. The Chiefs are technically the road team, although you're kind of on a neutral field. Doesn't really matter. The Chiefs are 3-point favorites in this setting against the division rival. How do you see this one going?
I got the Chiefs winning this one. I just think with all the changes on the offensive line for the Chargers, that's going to be a lot for Justin Herbert to deal with. The Chiefs have usually been pretty good to open up the season. Again, no Rashee Rice, but you will have Xavier Worthy. You will have a healthy Hollywood Brown. I think this is going to be a low scoring game, like a 20-17 game. I would stay away from that spread, but I do trust the Chiefs to ultimately come away with a win here.
I'm with you there. I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I think that this could be a close game either way. Yeah, it's one that it's a coin flip game. I feel like for me. And if this were played at either field, that might sway my opinion. Considering that it's on a neutral field, I'm going to take the team that has been here so many times and taking care of business early in the season. That is Andy Reid and the Chiefs. Marcus, that brings us to our next one is Ravens against Bills. And this is, to me, this is the game of the week. Might end up being one of the games of the year. We saw a tremendous opening game last season that involved the Baltimore Ravens. This time, I mean, there's going to be some animosity here. You got the top two finishers in the MVP race. Lamar probably should have won it last year. At least there's a case to be made. It was Josh Allen. Shootout type of game. I mean, we're projected point total over 50. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, this should be the most fun game of the week. And I'm leaning Baltimore here for a couple different reasons. The Bills have a lot of injuries in their secondary right now. Maxwell Harrison, their first round pick, he's on the injured reserve list. He's not playing. The Bills were relying on Tre'Davious White to be that other outside corner. He's not going to be playing in this game with a knee injury. And while Baltimore's passing game isn't one that's elite like that, I do think those two injuries are going to be a big deal. Buffalo's got a lot of young guys on their defensive line. We'll see if they're ready to stop the run. I imagine that the Ravens are going to be running the ball a ton early in this game. And I just trust Baltimore's defense a lot more than I do Buffalo's, especially early in the year. So I'll actually take the Ravens to go on the road and get their revenge here.
All right. On a neutral field, the Ravens would be favorites for sure. The Buffalo's only 1.5-point favorites, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm going to go with the Bills here. I think that's Josh Allen's going to come out of the gate swinging. I think that obviously there's nothing wrong with the offense. It's the defense. Can you pull things together? And they were fine in the regular season. The Ravens are a stronger roster. There's no doubt in my mind. I see this being one of those shootout games where these quarterbacks are both going to want to prove it here. I've got the Bills coming out by a game that's probably decided by a field goal.
Well, and I think the thing that makes me a little bit nervous for Buffalo is you've got someone like Khalil Shakir who's dealt with a high ankle injury throughout training camp, right? So that means your top two receivers are Keon Coleman and Josh Palmer. And I just don't think those guys are going to scare Baltimore at all. Like, I think Baltimore's just going to put Wiggins and Humphrey on them and then load up to try to stop the run. Maybe we'll see some more blitzing, but I just don't know if Buffalo's got the playmakers to really exploit them. Again, this is going to be an awesome game. I'm leading Baltimore, but we'll see.
All right, Marcus, that brings us to our final primetime game. Monday Night Football, Vikings at the Chicago Bears, the new look Chicago Bears led by head coach Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams in year 2. Vikings are going to have a new quarterback at the helm as well, and JJ McCarthy getting his first real action. Who do you see coming out on top in this one?
This is a really hard spot for Caleb Williams, right? You're going against Brian Flores and his defense and all the new pieces they got this offseason. And you're going to see some of the wildest blitzes. You're going to see, 6-7 man blitzes. You're going to see guys lining up in the A gap. We know Ben Johnson has a lot of experience against Brian Flores. It hasn't always been great, as we saw like in the week 18 game last year. I'm going to take Minnesota here, but the fact that it is in Chicago and I do like some of the additions they've made on offense makes this almost a pick 'em, but I'm going to lean with Minnesota, the team that's more experienced, has the right now the better coaching staff. But honestly, we've got some really good primetime games this week. It should be a great week of football.
Absolutely. I am going to take the Vikings. I'm a believer in the Bears. I think they're going to get it, but I think they're going to have their growing pains as well. Starting off with Ben Johnson's offense, Caleb Williams, he's got improvements to do. And so I think that the Vikings take this one in a close game. We'll see how it goes, but you said it. Great slate of primetime games this week. We go live on this show every Tuesday now at 2 p.m. Eastern time. You can follow Marcus on X at Marcus_Mosher. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Stacking the Box podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also check us out on YouTube or ask Alexa to listen to the Stacking the Box podcast. Check out my written content on Still Curtain, Marcus's written content on the Fansided NFL Network. Be sure to follow fansided.com for your daily sports news and opinions. And thanks again for listening to the Stacking the Box podcast.